In today's video, I wanted to take an opportunity to share a recent email that I received from one of the viewers asking for help. And the message reads, "Hey Tony, I really like your messy workbench videos. They are really great at helping me get more confident at working on my guitars." Well, I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad it's helping somebody out there. I'm working on a guitar and need to install these pesky Fender tuners that don't come with a screw to hold them in place. They come with two little nibs that need to be drilled. Do you have any tips on how I can install them without having them be misaligned? I don't know why Fender doesn't supply a template to locate the screw holes. Help! Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. Now those particular tuners are a little bit finicky because instead of having a little location for a screw hole, Fender decided to go with two little nibs that are built into the die cast housing, and you need to basically drill two pilot holes in the back of your headstock to be able to put those in and hold the entire tuner in place, which is a good idea because once they're in there, they're pretty solid. You don't have an unsightly screw to work with or look at. But at the same time, it's a little finicky because if you don't have a template, it's very difficult to align the holes properly. So this viewer specifically mentioned that he does not have a template. If you do have a template, that is the best way to go. That's the easiest, the most effective way of getting the locations in the right spot. But in this particular case, he mentioned that he doesn't have a template. So I'm going to show you how I go about installing these tuners without a template. It's maybe not the most effective or elegant or efficient way of doing it, but it definitely works when you don't have a template. So without further ado, let's head on over to my messy workbench and I'll show you how I go about installing them. You need to take off the little screw and the little washer, and you want to start putting all the individual tuners in the neck. But you don't want to put them in very tightly. You want to make sure that you have the ability to adjust them. So let's go ahead and do that for all of them. And these ones, the shaft, are all the same size. So less worries. Now I'm lucky because this neck has the holes drilled to the proper size. Sometimes you might run into issues where you buy a neck and the holes are more vintage style, vintage size holes, which means the holes are a little bit narrower and will have to be drilled out. In this case, we don't need to do that. Which is an extra step saved, in my opinion, right? I push them in, but they're not tight against the front of the headstock. There's actually a gap here. I can't push them in further because the pins are touching. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to make sure everything is perfectly straight. You can use a guide, like a straight edge. You can use something like a level and put it up against all of the tuners to make sure that they are level and straight, and make your fine adjustments. That way you know that everything is very straight and true. Okay, you can also look at it just to make double sure that everything is aligned. Next step is we're going to replace the washer and the bushing. Now while we do this, sometimes the tuners will move. But let's not worry about that right now because we're going to adjust it again. Make sure you put your washer the right side, so the side that has the little bevel is the top, the flat side is the bottom. Once you have all of those back on the shafts, you're going to put the little nut back in. Just drop it in like so. Next step, we're going to just tighten these, but they're going to be tightened very, very loose because we still want to be able to adjust the positioning of the tuners. I believe it's a 10 millimeter. And as soon as you feel the nut becoming a little hard to turn, you stop. The tuners will move. You can hold them with your fingers, but they will move. Don't worry about that at this point. We just want to get them snug in there. All right. Now don't use a power tool to do this because you're going to over torque it and you're going to run into issues. Hand tools are often your best bet when doing things like this that tend to be a little bit more delicate. You can accommodate, you know, something like this because the hole goes a little deeper. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to use it for this purpose. So I like these. All right, so I tighten them finger tight. At this point, everything's out of whack again. So we're going to just make some room. We're going to realign them as we did using our straight edge. Okay. Now everything is nice and straight. And at this point, we're going to retighten the nut, and we're going to make a little indentation. Now what I like to do is I like to leave this in place when I do this because it tends to help with the tuners, stop the tuners from turning. And what happens here is basically we're making little dimples in the finish that's going to show us where we need to make the holes. So now that we have those placed as they should be, we're going to back them out, take them all out, and we should have nice indicators right now of where the holes need to be. Now if you want to use a template, by all means, that'll work. That's probably the safest way of doing it because it's not necessarily going to, you know, things are not going to move on you. Although making the template is a little bit of time consuming unless you have use for the template and you want to do that over and over again. See the little dots, the little divots? So that's where we're going to make the holes. So I'm going to put this on my drill press and drill the holes. Now I don't have to tell you this, but you want to use a drill bit that's roughly the same size. So this one works fine, and you really only have to go in probably 1/8 of an inch, less than 1/4 of an inch. So I like to mark my drill bit with some tape. So I use the tape as a depth guide, or I can set my drill bit itself, my drill press itself, to stop. If you go slightly deeper, no big deal. But you don't want to go through the headstock. So I do that. That way I know where I need to stop. Let's move over to the drill press and we're going to start making some holes. Alright, so when you're doing this, I highly recommend using a drill press to make sure everything is true and straight and you're not going wonky all over the place. Aim for the divot and then away you go. So at this point, when the holes are drilled, all you really need to do is press fit the tuners in place one by one, and they should fit like a glove. You shouldn't have any issues fitting them in. And then once they're in there and you want to press them in as close as they can go to the back side of the headstock, and then we'll let the rest of the little bushings do the work to push them back in. And so let's put the bushings back in. Let's drop the little hex screws or shafts in place. We can tighten them by hand to get them started. If anything is not going in properly, you just want to make sure that the shaft is aligned. You don't want to torque it and just realize that it's in crooked. You don't have to crank the crap out of it. You can just finger tighten it, and as long as everything is touching the back side properly, you're in business. You're good to go. Like so. And at this point, you have a nice set of tuners installed, aligned, ready to rock. I like these tuners. They're solid. They're definitely worth the cost. I don't always need locking tuners. Sometimes I actually prefer to have the ability to wind my strings around the posts. It just gives me more string to work with sometimes. But it gives you good mass, and I like the weight of these tuners, and they're very solid. Nothing wrong with these tuners. So that's it. That's how you install the Fender tuners with the double shafts or the double pins in the back. And I think it makes a lot more of just a cleaner look overall to the tuners. And that's it. That's how you do it, guys. As you can see, the video was shot a little while ago because this is the actual neck I was working on in that video, and you can see the tuners are installed, the guitar is put together, and I'm enjoying the tuners. They've been working very well since I installed them. So I hope the video gives you a little bit more confidence and makes you understand that even if you don't have a template per se, you can still get the tuners installed correctly and straight and look really nice. All you need is a little bit of patience and time, and just refer back to this video and you should be able to do it on your own. So if you enjoy the content we're putting together here, and if you specifically enjoy these little My Messy Workbench series and you want to see more of them, please comment below. I'll be happy to shoot more videos and show you how to do other aspects of guitar building so you can get more confident with your guitars as well. In the meantime, guys, please subscribe to the channel. There'll be more great videos right here on Addicted to Gear. See you soon.